What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Maple Leafs Media. As always, I'm your guy, Jake, and today I have a very special guest on here, former NHL player, former co-host of Leadoff at Sportsnet 590 The Fan. We have Mike Zigomanis. How are you doing today?
I'm good, bud. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for coming on here.
No, thanks for having me. I had a little trouble on my cell phone there with the link, but I got you on my laptop right now. I just got in from golf, so excuse the appearance. I didn't have a chance to change. So I just got off off the links. I haven't had a chance to play too much with the morning show, but been off for a couple weeks, so trying to get all the golfing I can.
And how's your round of golf?
It's pretty good. My handicap's at a 4 right now. It should be a little bit lower, but I haven't had much. Like I said, I haven't played as much as I'd like. We had the 5 weeks, the 5 week shutdown, so there was a tough start in the spring. But the weather's been pretty nice, and for October, really nice, and hopefully get to squeeze in a couple more rounds.
Myself, I actually haven't gotten out to the links once this summer, so
Okay.
I need to make it out in October here. But yeah, very excited to have you on here. Kind of making the transition from summer to winter, fall, winter. And with that, we go from baseball season, the Toronto Blue Jays making a close to a playoff run. We go to the Toronto Maple Leafs, hopefully making a playoff run. Did you get a chance to watch much of the Jays this year?
Yeah, I watched almost all of them. Some of the late night West Coast games, not as much with being up at 4 a.m. But yeah, it was an exciting year. The season Vladdy had, Robbie Ray, obviously Semyon. Bo was good for the most part. And my favorite player, Randall Grichuk, had an up and down season, but came through in moments. And I actually got to go to a game at Rogers Center. I went to one, so that was nice to get back in there and to see fans. But it was an exciting season. Came down on the last day. It was they worked hard to kind of get in there end of August, September, and then just a little bit of a lull, right? Towards the end, last couple of weeks. And that's all it takes when you're in a tight, wild card race like that. It doesn't take much to get out of it. And it just, the hard part is 91 wins. It's, who's better than the Jays in the AL? Like, obviously the Rays are the Rays. I get it. And the seasons that the Sox had, Red Sox, they weren't supposed to be good. The Yankees were, had a real bad year, but the Jays I think they had enough to come out of the AL. Are they going to win everything? Maybe, but it's tough, right? 91 wins. It's definitely a progression in the organization. I'm going to include last year as the 60 games, and then this year they're definitely taking a step forward, and it's an exciting team to watch. It'd be nice to bring Semyon back and Ray, but obviously you're not going to have a chance to bring both those guys.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. It'd be nice to get both back, but I'd be happy with just getting one back, filling some other needs around.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we're making the transition to hockey season. That was really disappointing. I was really disheartened. I was at that last Yankees game when the Vlad home run hit off the wall and bounced back in. That was really frustrating. But we're on to the Leafs, and we'll see how this season goes. Hopefully, it's a bit better than the way it ended last year for them. But what are you up to now? I know you're coaching with U of T. You just came off of co-hosting the Leadoff. So what's going on in the world of Mike Zigomanis?
Yeah, so did the morning show for a couple of years and worked with Sportsnet and Fan 590 Radio for 3, and it was a great experience. Kind of went into it with not a lot of training and learning on the job, so that was great. And everybody was very welcoming at 590, and the hosts, other analysts. Had a media coach, Bob Babinski, who I worked with almost every week. So a lot of early mornings and a lot of hockey talk and just watching other sports, right? I'm a fan of, obviously, I watch NFL on Sundays and I keep track of the Jays, and I love soccer. It's kind of my first sport, and I love the Raptors and kind of followed them, but to actually cover it every day was a real pleasure. And at the same time, it was a lot of work. but that's come to an end this last couple weeks, right? It's 2 weeks. I think tomorrow was my last show. And I've coached UFT for 3 years. I'm pretty sure it's I've been away. I haven't got into it full time yet with UFT, and I've been kind of a part-time assistant coach, but looking to get into it more this season. But we don't start the regular season for another month, so there's still time to iron out all those details. But yeah, I got a couple balls in the air right now on trying to figure out what's next. So not quite sure if I'm going to stay in media. I've had a couple people reach out to do podcasts and work on some interesting things that in that field. But yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to be in broadcasting media or maybe dive into coaching a little bit more.
Maybe perhaps coaching in the NHL one day.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So how did you find the transition from playing in the NHL to getting into media and co-hosting a show in the mornings?
Yeah. Like I said, it started off just doing Leafs Morning Skate. It was a show with Jeff Blair, and Jeff was on from 9 to 12 and 9 a.m. to noon. And I went on at 10 a.m. with him a bunch of times. And from there, I went and filled in on Hockey Central at noon. Did that a bunch of times. And I was on with Gort Stellick doing Leafs pre and post, Leafs Nation. And then, I was doing a 3-hour show and did it for a couple weeks. And the radio station liked what they heard and just kind of said, "Hey, would you be interested in going on in the morning?" And I was like 6 to 9 a.m. I was like, "Can I try it out for a month?" And then they said, "No, you got to sign, and we got to get you through a contract, and it's got to be multi-year." So without digging into the details too much, that's kind of how it all started. So I didn't really have a chance like a week to try it out or a month. It was a 2-year deal, and it was a lot happened. Obviously we were 3 people on the show. Then it was just me and Scott, and then it's come to an end. And Scott's moved on, I moved on, and have to find out next. But the transition, it's different, right? I think it's a lot harder than people realize. They turn on, they're in their car or listen to the podcast on their phone, and it's just, oh well, you just go on the radio and talk. But it's not really that simple, and it takes years to sharpen your skills and learn that side of things, whether it's the flow of a show, the chemistry between you and a co-host, talking to guests, you're just the way you project on the radio versus when you're on TV, and how they're different. And there's a lot. You have producers, assistant producers, technical producers, and there's a lot. It's not you just don't go in a studio, flip your mic on, and start. There's so much more. You have games during the show. You have a whole lineup, making sure you're out in commercial times. But like I said, I learned a lot. Had great coaching, and I'm sad the show came to an end. But it was I asked to move on and see if there was anything else at Sportsnet, and that I wanted to move on for the morning show. And we chatted through the summer, but nothing came up. And my 2 years ended end of September.
So what would be your biggest advice to someone like me? I'm a student, and I'm trying to become a sports journalist. I want to be on the radio. I want to be on TV. What kind of advice would you give me?
Well, first I'd say, what is it that draws you to it? Like, I'd have to ask you, like, what is it? I know I shouldn't be asking you questions. You're supposed to be asking me the questions, but what is it about radio and TV and media? Like, what drives you? Why do you want to do that? I would start off with that question.
Well, for me, I've always grown up loving sports. It's just I know all these random stats that people look at me like, why do you know that, but you don't know this? Like, it's just sports means so much to me. And when sports were taken away from me during the pandemic, I wasn't able to watch that. I really felt that, and kind of felt like I was going into a lonely place. And when sports came back, I started these channels up, and this in the Bills bunker. I follow the Buffalo Bills. I come on here and I talk with other fans, and I enjoy it so much, and I think that I know that's what I want to do for my career.
Yeah, well, that's as long as you have the drive, that's all that matters. And I would say the same thing that I would say to young athletes or hockey players trying to make the NHL is you have to go out and find one thing every day and improve in it. And it could be, gosh, something small as your posture when you're doing podcasts or shows, or you're doing hits, or you're working on something, doing some kind of recording. Your posture, the way you project, working on your crutches. It's the ums, ahs, you knows, the way you start a question with a guest. There's so many things you can kind of work on. So I would say get better at one thing every day. And you just kind of work on that and go from there. I was lucky enough to use my experience as a hockey player to get me into media, right? Obviously, there is some privilege there that I didn't go to school for broadcasting. I didn't have to start doing updates in Timmins, Ontario, or no offense to Timmins, I haven't been there. I'm just trying to think of places. I heard North Bay. I've heard everyone say, I started in Timmins, Ontario, and I worked all my way to the Fan 590, or North Bay. I was in the mail room. But, it's most people, when they do get to the morning show, or you have your own show, you've done it for 10 years, 15 years, and you have that experience. But at the same time, I was very privileged the fact that I played hockey, and obviously former athletes are asked to do a lot of shows, to be analysts, to co-host shows. So that's kind of how I got my start, than putting in probably more time that you need. But it's at the end of the day, you gotta get on the mic, you gotta get in front of the screen, and you have to work on it. You can do all the practice runs you want at home, or you can simulate being live on air as much as you want, but until that red light goes on, it's the best time to learn.
Yeah, I appreciate that advice. Thank you very much. Yeah. I'm trying to soak everything up here, just absorb it, and use this for my future, because I'm really excited for what the future holds.
That's great.
So you had a bit of a privilege getting into the sports media field as someone who played in the NHL. But to get to the NHL, you did not have that privilege. There really isn't much of a privilege to get in the NHL unless you have exceptional status to get into the CHL. So really, the process for you wasn't that easy to get into the NHL at all. And maybe one of the hardest parts was signing a contract.
Well, it was a long journey. It's getting to the NHL. So I can give you a little bit of a story. I was never supposed to make it to midget hockey, and I ended up skipping midget and going from Bantam right to the OHL. So put a lot of people wrong growing up. Wasn't big enough, wasn't tough enough. And then played 4 years at Kingston, got drafted in the second round a couple times. Obviously, I re-entered the draft and started off in the minors. So in Lowell, Massachusetts, playing 3 games in, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon on the buses, on a minor league salary, which was pretty much the minimum at the time. And pretty much, just doing what a lot of people do in a lot of different fields, just like, I guess, media. I kind of went through that whole go to North Bay, work in the mailroom, and work your way up doing updates and just trying to prove yourself at the end of the day. So yeah, I was in the minors for a year. I bounced up and down. In my career, I moved 40 times. I didn't have my first full season until my 6th pro season, which is really late. If you kind of don't make it in 3 years, 4 years, it's very tough in the NHL. So it took me a while. And then after I played a couple years, had some unfortunate injuries, found myself back in the minors, but ended up winning a cup with the Penguins, ended up playing for my hometown with the Leafs. And then I finished my career in Rochester. So it was, it was 4 years of junior hockey and 13 years of AHL, NHL, and I played a year in the Swedish Elite League. And it was it's a grind. I signed 1-year contracts every year except for my 2 years in Phoenix, and even those 2 years, I started in Phoenix, got sent down to the minors, back up to Phoenix, start in the minors, and then traded to Pittsburgh. So it wasn't exactly I wasn't in one spot for 2 years. So it was always tough on 1-year contracts. And if you love it, it's I I listening to Jerry Seinfeld talk to a comedian. If no one knows who Jerry Seinfeld is, had a pretty big sitcom. And he came out with a DVD, and they're talking about his life and what it takes to go into to be a comedian. And there was another up and coming comedian. I forget the gentleman's name in the DVD, but documentary. But he was just frustrated, right? He's going in and out of these clubs. He's getting booed. People are throwing food at him. People are drunk and not laughing at his jokes. And he's bouncing around, and he's got stacks of jokes and sitcoms, and he just can't seem to get anywhere. And he's talking with Jerry Seinfeld after one of his hits and explaining his frustration to Jerry Seinfeld. And Jerry's just like, what else would you be doing right now? Like, what else would you be doing? And, I thought about that my whole career. You're starting out and I'm in the minors and not getting anywhere, not getting a call up to the NHL, and things weren't going right. We were away from home. You're in your early 20s and you're just kind of questioning what you're doing. And this comedian's like questioning what he was doing. He's like, I'm not going anywhere. And Jerry Seinfeld was just like, well, where else do you have to be? Appointments. And the up and coming comedian was just like, my friends are lawyers, doctors, they're here. And the same kind of thing, right? My friends were all in the NHL scoring 30 goals, 40 goals, making the millions of dollars. I'm in the minors on a minimum salary. And it's just, what else was I going to do? I grew up a hockey player. My dream was to play in the NHL. And it's just something silly like that from a documentary kind of stuck with me. There's times I wanted to give up 3-4 times and went to Swedish Elite League, and I had 7 surgeries in my career, but it is true what they say. You can't fail until you give up. So that's kind of the lesson I got from Jerry Seinfeld in the documentary and applied it to my career.
That's an interesting Jerry Seinfeld. That's keeping you driven.
Yeah.
Just sorry here. Thinking back to when you were drafted twice. I understand you were drafted twice. How just difficult was that to deal with mentally? Like you worked all your life to get to that point of being drafted, and then last minute something doesn't go through, something doesn't work, and you have to go through that process again. How disheartening was that?
Yeah, it was tough. I didn't come to a contract agreement with the Buffalo Sabres, so I re-entered the draft and got picked up by the Hurricanes, and I was extremely happy. It was a tough summer, obviously, in a couple months. The time was between, I think, first week of May, and I got drafted again in June. So, yeah, it was tough because their deal was set up, and there was an issue with the fax machine and which contract got sent in. But at the end of the day, I was happy to join the Hurricanes, and I got to go to 2 drafts. How many players? There's millions of kids that dream of getting drafted, and I went twice. I don't know what to say. I feel terrible, but I couldn't do anything about it.
And I understand you got to take a friend to Florida?
Yeah, I took one of my good buddies to Florida with me.
That's pretty
the
sweet.
second, I was 20 years old, and my family went to the first one in Boston. I was like, why don't I just take one of my buddies to
why not?
to Florida? So we actually, you do the family pictures after you get drafted. It was just me and my buddy taking the pictures.
That's awesome.
And it went out. It was we went to South Beach for a couple days after and enjoyed it.
That's good. That's great. So you said you played for you played for a number of teams up and down in the NHL and the AHL. Plenty of moving around. How difficult is that to cope with mentally? Just not knowing, perhaps.
Well, you become a good packer. I could say that's my one thing. It's A lot of my friends would say, "Hey, can you come and help me move? You've done it 40 times." I say, "No, my back's killing me. I can't do it anymore. Sorry." Yeah, it's hard. It's a lot of long phone calls with my parents and my sister and friends. Like I said, at times it becomes tough. I think I didn't sleep in my own bed for probably 2 months at one time. I was playing in Lowell. I got called up to Carolina, sent down in the minors on a road trip, called back up to Carolina, sent down for the AHL All-Star game, and then back up to Carolina. And I had like one bag going between like nice weather down south in the Carolinas and then up into the cold, up into, going to play up in Massachusetts and Maine and bouncing around. The All-Star game was in Grand Rapids. And yeah, I didn't spend, it was like almost 2 months where I didn't get a chance to go home, going from the minors up, back down on a road trip, Carolina, then All-Star game, back to Carolina, then back to Lowell. So yeah, it goes by in a hurry when your career, you look back on it and all the tough times, but gosh, it goes by fast.
Oh man, that's a lot of going around. That's a
Yeah.
lot of moving. Wow.
Yeah.
Well traveled, Mike Zigomanis here.
Yeah.
So back in, I want to say 2007, you were with the Arizona then Phoenix Coyotes, and you were coached by none other than the great one, Wayne Gretzky. Not many people can say they were coached by the legend himself. What was it like to be coached by the great one, and what were some of the biggest takeaways you had from that time?
Oh, he's a great coach. Gave me kind of my first chance to be a regular in the NHL. Started off as a fourth liner and worked my way up and got a lot of third line minutes, a little bit of special teams on the power play, and had a great season with George Laraque and Oleg Saprikin. But Wayne was great to me while I was in Phoenix and someone I learned a lot from.
That's awesome. I mean, that's a legendary coach right there. The
Yep.
great one himself. I've got some signed jerseys right here from Wayne Gretzky.
Awesome.
So you also won a Stanley Cup with the Pittsburgh Penguins back in 2009. How special is it to have your name engraved on that cup?
Yeah, it was great. So I got traded to Pittsburgh, played their first 2 games in Sweden and of the regular season, and they got back on the Monday or Tuesday, and I got traded from the Coyotes to the Penguins on, I believe, the Tuesday, and they had a Thursday night home opener in Pittsburgh. So pretty much got on a flight, got to Pittsburgh late on Tuesday, woke up Wednesday, practiced with them, and then played at home Thursday. Had to learn all the systems in one day. And then I was in Phoenix at training camp. I got sent to the minors in San Antonio. I'll never forget. I was at the gym working out. We had a day off, I believe, on that Tuesday, and got the call just working out at a local gym saying you've been traded. I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I was just like, this is probably the biggest up and coming team. They just gone to the finals against the Red Wings the year before, and Crosby and Malkin. And at the time, I was like, are you kidding me? And they're like, no, they need a fourth line penalty killer faceoff guy. And, they want you. So packed all my stuff. I was in a hotel in San Antonio, getting ready to move into a condo for the season in the AHL. And, it looked like my career was over, right? I was in Phoenix, and it was like, you're going down to the minors. I drove 2 days to San Antonio. I think I practiced 1 or 2 of those days after, and then traded on the Tuesday. And, you think your career is kind of over at that point, right? Had a full season in the NHL, then the season after, didn't play much, up and down. And then at training camp, getting sent to the minors, and, just thinking for those 2 days of driving to San Antonio from Phoenix, or it's like, okay, maybe this is it. And then all of a sudden, a couple days later, the best team in the league wants you on your team. So it was kind of crazy. Yeah. And I mean, and there's no real warning either, right? Like you never know when you're going to get your chance, whether it's a trade or I talked to a lot of young kids there in the minors, and a lot of guys are saying, I want to give up. I don't have it. I'm like, you're going to get a chance to do what you love at some point. The only problem is there's not going to be Uh, you know, there's not going to be a month warning where Sportsnet's going to go to you and say, all right, we want you for a show, but you got 6 weeks to refine your craft. It might be, I need you tomorrow in for a quick read. Something has opened up this week, and we want to see if you're the person for the job, right? So it's the same kind of thing with hockey. You're in the minors, but they don't tell you, oh, yeah, in a month you're going to get called up. So you try eating well, you try working out, you try having the good games. It's like, no, you got to work on those habits constantly, right? Like your character is kind of what you do away from, people aren't watching, right? So there's just things you have to work on, and it's what you do away when no one's watching. So it's the eating well, the working out, going to practice, in games, doing the right things. So when you do get the call by the NHL, or you get the call by Sportsnet or TSN, you're ready to go.
Well, as they say, you gotta expect the unexpected, and you gotta, failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
Yeah.
You've heard that one before?
It's a great quote. Yep.
It is. So that's a crazy drive. Driving down to San Antonio, thinking your career's done. That's a roller coaster. You got traded right over the Pittsburgh Penguins, win a Stanley Cup with them. That's amazing.
Yeah. And then I got hurt. I had shoulder surgery in January, but I played 20 some odd games, and then rehabbed myself back for the playoffs. Got ready by like middle of, or I guess end of May, and got to practice with the guys the last couple of weeks. Didn't get any games in the playoffs, but just being around the team and playing those 20 some odd games, it was real special. And lucky enough to get my name on the cup and ring, and got my day with the NHL with the Stanley Cup in Toronto. So that was a real thrill for my family and friends.
Yeah, that must be awesome. And does that ring of yours have any special engravings or anything on there?
Nope, just it has your name on it. That's about it.
Cool.
Yeah.
That must be a massive ring, no?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Mario did an awesome job with his team designing them and went all out on the rings.
So when you look at the leadership group in Pittsburgh, Sidney Crosby stands out to me, maybe different to you. When you look at Sidney Crosby and the leader that he is, can you compare from the outside looking in? Do you think that there's some similarities between his leadership style and John Tavares' leadership style?
Well, I never got to play with John Tavares, and it's difficult to really give insight on a captain if you've never played with him. Obviously, we all hear things from the outside, but to be in a room with a guy, things I've heard about John Tavares is he's a great captain. I think you can see it when he talks to the media, and you see how much he cares about the teams he's played on, whether it was on the island or with the Leafs. And he's involved in the community a lot. So I think that's really important for someone in a leadership role. And guys speak very highly of him. Sidney Crosby obviously is one of the greatest leaders, and I got to sit in the room with him and didn't say a lot, but would talk when something needed to be said. But he really showed it on the ice and in practice. By far the hardest working player I ever played with. And he's as good as he is because of his work ethic, and everything he's gotten is, obviously he's highly skilled, but his work ethic really separates him from the really good players.
You gotta work on that. You can't, it's just, he's got natural gifts, but it's not just that. He's got to work extremely hard to get to that point.
Yeah.
So one more question I want to ask you before we head off here. It's something I ask all my guests, and that is, what is the weirdest autograph request you've ever received?
Oh, autographs, nothing crazy. Sign, the team, maybe the game program, hockey cards, photographs. I haven't had any crazy stuff where you're signing somebody's side of their neck or their face. I've seen guys, they say, sign me right here. I don't want it to wash off, or I don't want to lose the autograph on a person's body. I've never had anything like that. So there's been nothing too crazy. And I always enjoyed talking with the fans and signing autographs. And we were talking about Pittsburgh. We used to pull out of the parking garage or parked outside the old igloo back then called Mellon Arena, I think, when I was there. And you'd pull out, and I'd be out there for 2 hours sometimes signing autographs. The fan base was amazing. You couldn't really go anywhere without being stopped. And, going out for lunch with Crosby or going to a mall was like not happening. I can remember going to lunch, and one day he's like, "Hey, I need to go to the mall. You want to come to the mall with me?" I'm like, "With you, no chance." Like, it must be crazy. A guy like Crosby couldn't go to the mall and shop without, dozens of people around, if not more.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck getting any shopping accomplished then.
Yeah.
So, Mike Zigomanis has been on here for the last 30 minutes. Very appreciative of your time.
Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, thanks for coming on. And to all the viewers, thank you for watching. Until next time, I'm your guy, Jake. Mike Zigomanis. Thank you.